So here we're going to look at the Laurent series for 1 over 4i plus z, where z is a complex number and z is of the form a plus bi, where a and b are real numbers. So that's what my z is of the form of, and then I is my imaginary constant, square root of minus 1. So to turn this into a Laurent series, I'm going to look at some kind of Taylor series that's of a very similar format. Now the one that springs to mind is 1 over 1 plus z. Now this one is an alternating power series, and it's 1 minus z plus z squared minus z cubed plus z to the 4, and so on. So with that as my base, I'm going to use that to try and convert this into a Laurent series. Now here, my radius of convergence, which is very important in all of these, is absolute value of z is less than 1. So this is my building blocks to try and get to my Laurent series format for this. So now I want to get this into that kind of format. So let's just go through the steps. So first of all, I'm going to bring my z to the left hand side of my denominator, because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to factor out a 1 over z. So then I've got 1 over z, and then now I'm going to write another fraction with the z cancelled out, factored out in the denominator. So I've got 1 over z factored out, so that becomes a 1. Let's put this in brackets. And then I've got a plus, so keep the plus, and I've got a 4i there, so I can put a 4i. But now if I multiply that by z, I'll have 4iz. So then to put that right, I'll just divide this bit by z, and that'll bring me back to where I was. Okay, so now I've got a series representation for this when I put this into here. So now as I got this bit here, if I take that bit there in brackets, what I do is when I've got this bit here, I just plug those bits into there. So here I've got this, so I'm going to plug those bits into that. So the representation of that will become 1 over z, so keep that bit, and then do this as my series representation. So 1 minus, now wherever I see a z, I'm going to use 4i over z. So I've got 4i over z. And that's technically to the power of 1, which is a bit trivial, but I'm going to put that in there. So then my next one will be plus, and then I'm going to have 4i over z to the power of 2 minus 4i over z to the power of 3, and then plus 4i z to the power of 4. Now the big O notation, I'm going to leave that to the end until I've expanded all of this out, because I don't want to jump the gun on that until the end. It's a bit like integration where you don't put the plus c in until the end. Right, so now let's work out what we've got. So I'm going to stick with inside my square braces. So 1 minus 4i over z. Then here 4i squared, well I squared is minus 1, as you can see here. Let's just put that up there. I squared is minus 1. So if I square that, I've got a minus 1 times 4 squared, which is minus 16. And then that's a plus, that becomes a minus. So minus 16 over z, and that's going to be squared. So then I want I cubed. Let's calculate I cubed. So that's minus 1 times I. So that's going to be minus I. Okay, now what do I need to do here now? 4i cubed, so that's going to be 4 cubed is 64. 64 times minus I. So that's going to be minus 64i, but with this minus, I'm now going to have a plus. So now I've got plus 64i over z cubed. Okay, now what about this one? So I've got 4i z to the 4. So now I to the 4. So that's minus I times I. Well, I times I is minus 1. With a minus, I've got plus 1. So 4 to the 4 is 256, with a plus 1 stays as 256, and then I've got z to the 4. Okay, now all I need to do now is just distribute this z through here, which is pretty straightforward. 1 over z minus 4i z squared minus 16 z cubed plus 64i z to the 4 plus 256 z to the 5. And now my big O notation, my next one will be z to the 6 and so on. So I'm just going to put plus O 1 over z to the 6. So that'll be the next two in there and so on. Okay, so that's my Laurent series. Now I need my radius of convergence. So in this case, set that to absolute value and less than 1. So here I've got this, which is in this. So now I've got 4i over z is less than 1. Well, the absolute value of I, let's just put that there, that is just 1. So the absolute value of I is 1. So that's just a 1. So now I've got 4 over z, absolute value of that is less than 1. So now my absolute value of z is just going to be 4. So in this case, 4 over z, I need less than 4. So that's my radius of convergence. And this is my Laurent series. Okay, that's the Laurent series for 1 over 4i plus z.